There are a lot of politicians in Texas who talk about their faith one day and then do the exact opposite the next day. Today, I want to do something unusual and talk about my faith. And I'm not going to be that guy that tries to beat you over the head with a Bible. And to put it plainly, the bottom line up front, being a Christian is at the core of why I'm a Democrat and why I'm running for Senate. My faith is something I've often talked about as part of normal conversation or giving a speech, but it's not something I wear on my sleeve. Whenever I'm showing photos or videos from space, I'm pretty open that I often felt like I was seeing creation from God's point of view. Well, when it comes to politics, I think it's generally a good idea to keep religion explicitly out of it. Our founding fathers had emigrated from countries in Europe with exasperating religious cultures, and so they wisely gave us the First Amendment, which prohibits Congress from respecting an establishment of religion. And what a blessing! A fundamental principle that's given us 2.5 centuries free from that religious mess that the rest of the world so often finds itself in. But it doesn't mean that faith isn't important to most Americans, especially to Texans. It certainly is for me. When I was a teenager, I was involved in a Christian group called Young Life, and I decided to become a Christian. So for decades at different Air Force bases around the world, and here in Houston, I taught Sunday school, I taught Bible study. So I'm not just a cultural Christian, I actually believe it. My faith is important to me, and it informs my worldview. It always has. Which is why it makes me so mad to see what today's GOP is doing with Christianity, promoting some kind of perverted false religion. The Jesus I learned about in the Bible was a defender of the defenseless. This is exactly the opposite of what Trump preaches. This past weekend, this subject was on my mind. It was really bothering me. So I read the book of Matthew. It's one of the four Gospels, one of the books that chronicles Jesus' life. Jesus in the book of Matthew preached probably the most famous sermon in history. It's called the Sermon on the Mount. And he said some really interesting things, including the Beatitudes, the blessed are the meek, blessed are the merciful. He also said, simply let your yes be yes and your no be no. In other words, tell the truth. He said, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. He said to not store up treasures on earth, but store up your treasures in heaven. He said, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? He went into the temple, the big church of the time, and he overturned tables. He was so mad of those who were trying to profit off God, people who were selling things in church, doing business where they shouldn't. He told us to love your neighbor as yourself. He told a parable about the poor. He said, whatever you did for the least of these people, you did for me. I wonder if Mike Johnson has read this verse recently from Isaiah 10, verse 1 and 2. It might change some of the immigration, healthcare, and tax laws he's been promoting. Woe to those who make unjust laws, to those who issue oppressive decrees to deprive the poor of their rights and withhold justice from the oppressed of my people. Some more Old Testament gold from Leviticus, the law. Leviticus 19:33 and 34. Do not mistreat foreigners living in your country, but treat them just as you treat your own citizens. Love foreigners as you love yourselves, because you were foreigners one time. Ouch. There's nothing I can add to that. It speaks for itself. In Texas, they're trying to put the 10 commandments in every school. So let's read a few of them. Here's number 8, the 8th commandment. You shall not steal. An important one to remember, just as Trump just directed Texas to steal 5 more congressional seats. The 9th commandment, you shall not give false testimony. You could write book after book and have documentary after documentary of the continuous stream of lies that come out of Trump's mouth. The bottom line is, I'm running for Senate. I'm not running for bishop or deacon. But it's important to point out this overwhelming hypocrisy that MAGA is showing with respect to Christianity. Instead of quietly living out their faith, they go around with cross necklaces and tattoos from the Crusades. It's dangerous and it's perverted. So I'm a big fan of having a little humility. I think that would go a long way to heal and restore our nation's politics. But we as Democrats should not hand over faith to the Republicans. In fact, we should call them out when they're promoting a false and dangerous faith. And we should focus our policies on some basic principles that I think work for all Texans, no matter what your faith is. Treat others the way you want to be treated yourself, and have a little humility. Because at the end of the day, we all share the same planet, and we all need to work together to make this place better for our children and their children. And that's something we should all agree on, no matter what your faith is.